Oh, is it? She's coming in person. Great. Jose, we will not need to do tonight. We will, however, need handouts from Jerry Mitchell. I believe. And you know who Jerry Mitchell is. He's the operations guy that runs the buses in the custodian. And here he comes. So we'll find out if he needs something up here. Thumb drive. Doesn't, oh, new ones. Oh, this agent, it's Tom Simmons. It's on our website. And the agent is Captain. I vaguely remember that. And if you have a problem, he's right there. You know which one he is.
If I do your time. Did you see if I respond to trying to?
Right, but I wasn't really sure. Or two. A lot of emails. I get it suddenly like, they're asking questions. I
wasn't planning. I said that.
(5:30), we'll call this meeting to order. Roll call. Here.
Here.
Here. A reading of the mission vision, Dara Yeager.
Our mission, challenge all students to achieve their full potential through engaging, responsive educational experiences that inspire innovation, critical thinking, and collaboration. Our vision to develop learners who are competent, compassionate problem solvers. Our operating principles: information for one is information for all. Look for prizes, verify facts, think ahead, disagree, explain thinking, and then commit.
Thank you. Number 4 is welcoming visitors, public comment.
We do have public comments. I will go. I see Callie is gathering. Anyone that would like to make public comments, as you may be aware, we need to have you sign ahead of time. If you've already done that, great. If you haven't, I'm sure the board president will take your name.
Absolutely.
Now, if you happen to ask.
Yes.
Am I on?
You are.
You're up, and the microphone looks big, but it's kind of quiet, so get nice and close, and we'll see if that helps. We have visitors at home that really would like to hear what we have to say.
Hello, it's so nice to be on this side. I'm here tonight as co-chair of the Friends of the Performing Arts. My co-chair, Nancy Weston, back there. Both of us were longtime performing arts teachers in this community. She orchestra, I vocal music, directed shows, many, many years. And we have been working for 3 years now to raise funds to build a proper auditorium for our school. Since we no longer possess that. We were hoping for a bond issue passed, but we were not surprised that it didn't. However, we believe that the people in this school district want what's best for their kids. And with enough passion and work, which we are willing to put in, to continue to put in, we can achieve this. I want to talk a little bit about the proposal to use the old pool. Well, that's a huge space. I've been in there several times looking for stuff. All of the sets that I built for Cinderella, for Spamalot, all those things, can't find them. I suspect a lot of it went into the dumpster. I don't know. But there's a lot of space there where we could have really dedicated space for our storage of stuff in the dungeon. And if you haven't been to the dungeon, you're lucky. That's where the stuff is stored for many, many, many years of performances. I'm afraid the old pool space as a solution is just magical thinking. Those who do not have an idea of what is required of a functioning theater, which needs lights, sound equipment, travelers, those are the curtains through the depths, acoustic adaptations, fly gallery, and many, many other considerations, as well as a raked floor for the audience, so that you can see. That would be no better than sitting in, I don't know, the Methodist Church, which, by the way, I have directed shows there, and we built up stage and we built up the scene. And where's the money coming from for this? If you're going to do it right, it's going to be very expensive. It will not come from the Friends of the Performing Arts. Our donors pledged to a complete auditorium, not a makeshift, second-rate substitute. I have been assured by many people in this community, as we have done our feasibility study, that we can do this. We can raise the funds to complete it. It would be great if we could raise the funds to completely build it. But I feel that we probably still will need to have a bond issue for this. I would say if there are people who don't want to vote for the vote, then let's have a separate question on the ballot. I feel that that would be the fairest way to do this, and it would allow our group to move ahead with our robust campaign, our capital campaign, to say, we've got this going, there's another chance we can get some help from this school district, but we are going to move ahead and continue with our vision. As we walked in tonight, my husband, Bruce Berglund, who taught here for many years in the science department, pointed out those windows over there. Well, they're not windows anymore. But that was in the original plan. That's where the auditorium was going to be. Right next to the music wing. And that was in that 70. Guess what got cut? The auditorium. I mean, it's easy to be negative, and it's easy to say, oh, well, we'll get that someday. But let's not make it easy. Let's do what's best for our kids. I'm not getting any younger. None of your kids are getting any younger. And that year goes by, and that year goes by when we don't have a performing arts center. So that's what I'm here to ask, that you support that. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Oh, and I just happen to have some handouts. I know, David, you've already gotten one. That you might be interested. This was our case study, which the Renaissance group from Des Moines helped us with. Have to make a few changes. Thanks, Jane.
Well, I'm Lorraine Wintering, and I agree, Janice, it's much nicer on this side of the microphone. But I gave all of you today a letter that I have written to you. You may find it in your email as well, but I didn't know if you were coming to read it or not, so there it is. And I wanted to just, I'm not going to read this to you because I will be here way too long. And just wanted to point out what inspired me to write this letter. And that is the conversation at your last board meeting where, you know, it was a kind of a tug of war between, well, do we remodel and use PEPAL funds over a period of years to correct problems, or do we go out for a bond referendum? And do we do it that way and try again? And this, then I have heard a lot of talk about the previous school board or boards, but particularly that which built the middle school. And I served on that board for 2 terms. And so I wanted to provide you some history to that project so that it's not in question what happened, what was going on, what it cost, what inspired us to build that middle school, not just with our board, but with the community, the teachers and the students all lined up behind us. The building of this middle school really was phase 1. And I outlined that in your letter. What some of the reasons and benefits for this school, some of the cost savings. We were in declining enrollment, which we turned it around. And then we realized some of that was maybe some magical numbers, but you know, here we are declining again. So we do have to watch our funding. So that building, it was all about building 21st education, saving some money, sharing staff, sharing as much curriculum, et cetera, across the board. Then we did build that building with PEPAL and with sales tax revenue. Now the PEPAL funding that we used, and this is outlined right here in this letter, when we would go to Des Moines, to the Capitol every year, and we would lobby with all of the legislators that we knew, and not just our district, but all across Iowa. And we would talk to them saying, we would like supplemental state aid. We would like, you know, X%. And we were scolded by our legislators and senators saying, we don't need to give you any money. How much money do you have in the bank in your PEPAL fund? You know, and our district, as well as other districts across Iowa, yeah, they were stockpiling money, just saving it up, you know, waiting for the next big project. So we spent it all but a couple million and left it. And the cash flow that Matt Gillespie did with Piper Jaffray showed that it was going to be a sound proposal, not only at that time, but into the future. So I wanted to clear that up. The second phase then was a general obligation bond to be passed to build the high school, remodel the high school, and build some spaces that were shared, such as band, chorus, family consumer science, career technical education, those types of things that we needed to marry to the 2 buildings rather than just one building, and locate them such that both the middle school and high school could utilize those spaces together. We didn't have enough money in the budget to do it in phase 1, so this is why phase 2, it's important to address those items. Phase 3, at that time, if we waited until 2029, when the middle school is paid for, then we could build the auditorium with cash in the bank, cash that would accumulate for PEPAL. Now, PEPAL money has been spent on ball diamonds, however, a lot of that had been fundraised, and new lighting here and there, and you know, a host of other projects. So the PEPAL thing is not as we left it. So this was our roadmap. This is how we had planned to do this. You know, there's been bumps along the road since a number of us have left the board, superintendents have left the district. But, you know, I compliment you all to consider running another referendum again. And I ask you to start with that feasibility study and a survey of your stakeholders. They are your market. They are your consumers. The kids are your customers too. You know, find out what do they want? What is it that is going to be something that they would embrace and vote yes for? In that last survey, 70% of 600 respondents had said yes, they would do something to the high school. They would support something. And somewhere that broke down between what the survey said and what the proposal for the bond referendum was. So somewhere you've got to, you know, we've got to figure out what is it and really trim down those questions so that you really can pare it down to, do they want air conditioning or don't they want air conditioning? Will they support circles or no circles? You know, what is it? Should the auditorium be built along with it or later? So that's what some of this is all about. So I challenge you and ask you to do what's best for our kids. You know, they really deserve to have a building that is functioning. We know there are some serious problems with sewage, electricity, and HVAC in this building. And I don't think that, you know, couple over a period of years is going to do the job. It's a Band-Aid and we can do better. So thanks so much. Call me if you have any questions or want to talk further.
Thank you very much, Lorraine. Kayla. Russ.
Hello, I am Kayla Russ. I'm a mother of 4 kids that go to the Charleston School District. And I'm here tonight for one purpose, and that's the safety of our children. As all our kids deserve this, our kids need this, the #1 priority is safety. And as I speak about this, the incident in Perry, we don't have any preventive measures in place if something were to happen. We have no way to prevent or deter students from bringing in guns or knives at this point. We have crisis units set up, which are great, but we have nothing to prevent it. Even having every 10 student tag check, doing something to deter this behavior to prevent this from happening. I'm sure you guys are all aware that a knife was brought to school last week. It was brought out in class. These are just little things that are happening that could be leading to something big, and we have nothing to prevent it in place. I know there's a lot of parents who are worried about their kids' safety. It's a requirement that we send our kids to school. It should be a requirement that our kids are kept safe. And that's not only for our kids, our teachers. Our teachers went to school to educate our children. They love their jobs, but who would like to be scared to come to work every day? There's nothing in place right now. So as a community, I know there's so much going on with building a new auditorium, all this other great stuff, but safety is a priority. That should be #1. It shouldn't be, let's wait till November. Should we wait till November? Should we wait for repercussions? Should we wait for something to happen and then be reactive? Or should we be proactive and do something now? I guarantee if we did a vote around town and just did something for the safety of our students, whether that be metal detectors, security guards, there's a lot of ifs and that's about metal detectors. I get that. There's a lot of things, but there's many ways that we can make it safer and we can at least deter the kids from bringing in something that could harm others. So I'm just asking that we could do a vote in the community for safety, nothing else. No auditorium. I understand it's a big need, it's a want, it'd be great, but safety is a priority. And that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Anyone not on the list that would like to be on the list? Thanks, everyone. Approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second. Motion made and seconded. Any discussion about the agenda? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passed. Middle school robotics team. To the right.
Yes, thank you, Board President Schroed. I'm happy to introduce and have a short presentation on one of our talented and gifted programs. You may recall, one of our goals last year was to increase the intensity and support we provide for our highest achieving students, because sometimes in schools, that group of students are not challenged to the zone of their proximal development. And fortunately, we have Mr. Nyberg on staff, And he is able to actually almost spent a full year last year with the detailed study of how to up our bidding, so to speak, working closely with Jen Schilling and our AEA partners. You will recall, we presented at SIAC meetings, at Lunch and Learn, at Rotary. Well, now that hard work is coming to fruition. So in the next 12 to 15 minutes, we're going to have Mr. Nyberg and his middle school students talk about just one of their gifted education projects.
Thank you. Definitely was says, they're fortunate to have me, and I would reciprocate that I'm very fortunate to be able to work with this group of students, among many others who are bright, curious, dynamic, and just want to do and create. So this particular program is what's called Lego. It's called Lego League, and it is a program that promotes STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. It promotes STEM learning for students at all levels through different levels of complexity. So at the middle school level, this Lego League, there are several components to what goes into like a competition day. We're going to demonstrate and share with you all this evening just one component, which is what we call the robot game. So anyone who's interested to take a closer look, I invite you to come. If you are curious to see what's going on, otherwise I'll just keep talking. I do love the sound of my own voice. What we have is a small computer that's here in the middle, and then around that computer, students build using Legos. They build a robot. It has wheels, it has attachments, it has gears, motors that turn, things that move. And every year there's a new board. There are new, we call missions around the board, or tasks to have their robot complete. Flynn, could you, so a couple students, Flynn, Runner, Graham, maybe just show how some of the pieces move around. As we move some of these pieces, we see that orange parts tend to be what are designed to be interacted with. So there's a soundboard.
This is the soundboard. And you can't just lift it up and drop it, because your goal is to get all the pieces suspended in air, not just one drop down. So you got two lifted up, but now you got to figure out how to get them all lifted up. So maybe you go this one, but then that one drops. So you can't do that. And so what we figured out is that you can lift them up, and that if you slide over in a certain order, they all stay up. And that is just one of the mission out of many that have complex designs.
And I want to pause there really quick. Could I have each of you just introduce yourself, please? Name, grade.
My name is Brenna Clover. I'm in 6th grade. This is a 7th grade team, but 6th and 7th grade team. But I like this program. I don't know.
Oh, I'm for the grade.
Graham Hampton in 7th grade.
I'm Isaac Aspen, I'm also in 7th grade.
So each of these missions, or each of these tasks has points associated with it. And the task is to accumulate as many points as you can in 2.5 minutes. Sounds like a lot of time, but it goes quickly. Isaac, are you ready? So I put you on the spot. Initially ran into, we had a regional qualifier in Waterloo in December. And so in a month and a half leading up to that, all these students were working on sort of focus on different missions, say, I've got a great way to tackle this mission. I've got a great way to tackle this mission. I've got a great way to tackle this mission. But they all had sort of rebuilt this core robot in different ways. And so a couple of weeks before the competition, we said, well, these are all great, but we need all of these to work on one robot. And so they had to sort of adjust how we built onto the robot, which was to make a system where pieces can snap on and off really easily. Would you demonstrate? Yep, and then you can slide that one. That's great. Yeah, so pieces step on and off very quickly. You can. So using sort of the system of pieces snapping on and off, we're able to incorporate a lot of really great ideas to be able to work on the same robot. So we'll demonstrate just one quick mission here. But there are a bunch of, my room is a mess, it's full of Legos. But there's a bunch of different pieces that have been built and designed to tackle either a specific mission or a combination of missions. And then along with building the pieces, the students all have to program the robot as well. You know, roll so far forward, turn so many degrees, roll so far forward, turn this gear, which turns this on. And so it's really quite incredible work. That's right.
Supposedly it's supposed to.
And so that's a part of the process, right? You make a piece and you design it and you program. And this earlier today, Renner, you had it like 6 or 7 times in a row. And you walk away and you come back and all of a sudden it's like, wait, what's different now? And that's kind of all part of the process of like, it worked 12 times yesterday and just didn't right there. So what do you tweak and what do you make sure you're paying attention to and kind of the setup? And what's fun about this in particular is this particular task is designed to be interacted with here with this orange lever that like slowly turns the chicken. And these students were like, yeah, that's not quite fast enough though. And so you used figure out what gear differentials were, and decided to just turn this directly. So the chicken moves much. So we're trying to finding creative solutions and out of the box thinking to try to get as many points as we can in that 2.5. In December, we surprised ourselves, I think, a little bit, and we won our regional qualifier. The highest score in the robot game. So yeah, a huge credit to what the good. Yes, in how many days? 4 days? So this 5 days. This Saturday, we have the state competition at Iowa State University. And it's broken up into 2 days. So there are also 2 teams from IC who are representing Charles City on Sunday as well. So we have this team coming from middle school here, and there's 2 other teams as well from IC who are representing Sunday. So 3 teams representing Charles City at a state level in this robotics league, which is really cool.
And it was our first time there, right?
Yes, it's first time. So Jesse White has done this in the past. He's graduated to like real robotics in the high school. So I think there was some middle school robotics in like the late 2010s, but there hasn't been for a number of years. So it's my first time doing this, first time for all these kids, first time for me to dance at SC much there as well. So a lot of us were just like, this sounds awesome, let's dive in. And we've learned a lot. Not always in the most glamorous of ways.
What does this sound?
Yeah, you push up. And we're trying to get to the blue for the next points, but we discovered that you can also just spin this piece and go at the same time. Well, a lot faster, but if you can spin fast. Yeah.
10 points for yellow, 30 points for blue. So by being accurate and so again, kind of a creative, again, figuring out that if we just have a tall piece that spins really fast, we can whip the top around and it's easier than dealing with like the leverage problem of
I think so the beauty of all of this was that this was their first time. We have a fairly new teacher in this role. And Charles City scored really well. They thought, hey, let's go, have a successful day and come home, right? And show them what we can do. Lo and behold, Charles City Public School won the entire competition. And I'm gonna say it was a good solid win, right? So now we're moving on to the state competition, and then with the IC participants, I think we have a lot of really bright kids in Charles City. That's what I think.
And I get a lot of them next year. For 2 years. I want to say also, we have one more team member who's not here today. Who's but Betty Tracy, 7th grade, is also.
And you have an assistant coach that works with you as well.
I do, Kelsey Vanderwerf. She's been amazing, bringing a ton of great ideas inside, pushing you guys in a lot of really.
And we've been doing some extra tag, also tag with this teacher has a strong background in mathematics. We also have hired another individual, a retired person that we coached out of retirement to come back to work for part-time. Do you want to maybe tell a little bit about her?
Yeah, her name is Jeannie Fappel. Her background is in middle school literacy. And she did do a little bit of gifted education 20-ish years ago. So she's a really, really great balance to what I bring to the table. My background being
Really
mathematics,
serendipitous.
her background being literacy, which is a great balance to have. She's been a huge help, especially out of the book stuff. It's an area where it's a bit above my pay grade. So it's really nice to have her experience and expertise.
So his hard work last year has led us to what I think is a pretty solid tag program, and I think this is evidence. So thank you guys. So guys, nice work. The fact that they have a program.
Yeah.
Those little things just blows my mind.
That's awesome. Consent agenda. Everybody's had a chance to look at that. Any motion to approve the consent agenda? Wait,
I'll make a motion for the consent agenda.
there a second? There's generally no discussion on that. All in favor? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Committee reports. Have an order for those by chance on
Finances first.
finances first.
Mac and Kendrick.
I'm gonna let Rich talk about that, because unfortunately I missed it. So he's got a lot of good information up there.
We were briefed by Callie and all the hard work she's doing. She's got an incredible uphill battle in front of her with some transgressions from her previous placeholder. So I don't know, Callie, you want to kind of shed some light on some of the things we discussed, our current status?
Yep, we had Becker Decker come in and we had a 5-year projection. There's some changes and some restructuring we'll have to do so we can break even moving forward. We did a 5-year projection. And then Ian and I did our budget workshop today, and we're looking at to the board work session here.
Like she said, some of the things we talked about were where we're at with solvency rate, UAV, and the tax levy. As many have known, we've had some issues with the special ed department and all the things that are being discussed. So I'll just kind of shed a little transparency on that. Due to the way kids are accounted for throughout our school, they weren't necessarily accounted for properly with the predecessor. And so Callie is doing her wonderful magic to try and take us out of a large deficit. That's not saying we're not, that's more of an attribute to the fact that we are putting a lot of money into our special ed program. We're making sure the students are first and foremost to do that. But because of that, we're looking at all the different possibilities, and if we may have to increase the tax levy rate to get us back in order in the next 5 years and what our forecast looks. Piper Jaffrey seemed optimistic that it's promising, but at the same time, as I said, she's got her hands full with keeping us afloat to just make sure our management budgets and everything stay where we want them. So there could come a time that that tax levy rate goes up, and that's not something that the public votes on. That's something we have to do to make sure that that's separate from our PEPAL money, that's separate from all that stuff. So I just want everybody, in the sake of transparency, there may be a point that that could go up as much as $1 per thousand. So that being said, it's just one of those things that she's working her tail off to try and avoid that. But if we want to make sure that we're giving the best to our children, we kind of have to know where we're at. So I don't want anybody being shock and awe when that day comes. That makes sense.
And we'll have a work session on that,
Discuss a little bit.
next is, negotiations and compensation. Dr. Fox, Mac.
So we met. Friday, I think it was yesterday, but yesterday was Sunday, so it was good. We had one conversation about insurance and the projections on where we are gonna go for insurance, as well as the increases we might see and the costs around what that might look like. And then we got some numbers on where the recommendations for our fund balance for the health insurance, and we're doing very well. And so it kind of complimented us on that, talked about some strategies on how we might be able to deliver insurance to everybody and keep things within a reasonable cost, which of course insurance goes up every year, so trying to manage that. I don't think we have final numbers yet. This was kind of the first projection, and they're going to send some documentation, some spreadsheets, as well as some figures that they had to calculate. We've seen that yet now. Okay.
And that information gets shared with the unions this week, so everybody gets in the loop on that information.
Thank you. Policy, Director Fox and myself. Director Fox, you want to mention anything about policies? It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, nothing,
Yeah.
the policies that we went over are on today's agenda, so you don't want to read them, but.
And once again, there were very, none of them had any substantive changes, except there were a couple of brand new ones. Artificial intelligence, as you know, is a very hot topic throughout the country. So the board will be recommending what I think is a solid policy. Now, it'll change, and we kind of laughed about that. This is our first blush, knowing what we know now. We'll probably look back at AI 3 to 5 years from now and say, wow, that was really a real primitive sort of policy. But at least we're doing the best we can with the information that we have from our legislatures, from our guidance. That was really the only major one. We did get a little bit more specific with some of our accounting definitions and some of our procedures. But other than that, it was standard protocol, and this is typically a 3-year cycle, 5 years required by law, 3 years is ideal. So we're going to go through each of these in a cycle that will allow us to have them all up to date by July of this summer.
Right. And again, these are overarching policies that pertain to the district. We do not write our own policies. These are written by lawyers and given to us by guidance at the Iowa School Board Association.
Number 9, Administrator, Director, Superintendent reports. Any administrative director?
We do have one, and I'm going to ask Director of Operations to come forward. Jerry Mitchell is going to give a mid-year presentation, and he'll have a handout on that you may want to view on our agenda.
Hey. Can you find the PowerPoint? All right. Well, this is my mid-year report, and I'm going to go over what the goals are that I have for myself this year, and then also a few other little things down towards the bottom. So again, this is my mid-year report. So slide 2. 3 goals for operations this year are crisis drills, fully implement bus passes for all riders in the district, and update radios and tracking locations on where they are. Crisis drills. This is a list of crisis drills we've done since the beginning of this school year. August 23, Chief Anderson trained staff on run, hide, fight, and that's been all staff in the district got trained on that. September 23, Chief Anderson trained high school, middle school students and on run, hide, fight, and then on 23, we started Safety Strong for the elementary students. The Safety Strong is just a more scaled down version. So when you get to run, hide, fight, and some of the videos and things that we do and things like that probably aren't what we want to show the younger students. So we went with a different route on that, and it's been going really well. September 21st, 23, Deputy Chatfield, along with 3 other officers from other towns. They love to do this, and they wanted to do this for a few years with our school, and now we're back in having them do it. I think we had some from a couple cities and a couple other counties that brought dogs and just did walkthrough with their dogs in the high school and the middle school. And they also walked through the parking lots with their dogs, and just to help show that we're constantly always here. The other thing with them walking around, they get a lot of questions and people ask them things. Our resource officer walks around a lot, get to ask them questions, and they're here and they're visible and in the buildings. November 20th, the Crisis Response and Life Safety Advisory Committee had the Floyd County Emergency Management Coordinator, Jason Webster, do tabletop exercises for different scenarios of disasters with our committee. Next page. Drills that we're going to conduct in the future that we have planned. We're working with police for different trainings in the school for future dates. We have some dates and some things set up. They're not really some things that we want to go out in public and say this is what we're doing, but we've got some pretty good drills that we're going to do with things that have happened in the state and the whole country. So we've got some things coming up, and it was funny when you plan drills, and you know, it's not. And things like that, everyone wants to know what specifically do we do, and we can't say what specifically we do because every disaster is different. So we have some plan coming up. We've been working extensively with Chief Anderson on a lot of things. In fact, there's going to be a lot of things being done on Wednesday nights over the next 3 months with police coming through the buildings, doing some other things also. So we're going to work pretty extensively with them over the next few months also. And then we got a big one that we started planning about, probably about 3 months ago. August 3rd of 24, we're working with the state of Iowa, local fire departments, emergency management staff, and we're going to invite other school districts, and we're actually going to have a bus and do a rollover. So it's before school starts. We're going to get some students and some staff involved. We're probably going to also involve the local hospital and things like that. So we're going to have an all-out drill and get everyone decorated up. And I can't stand that because I can't stand the looks of that on people, but because it looks so real. But it's going to be pretty extensive. The state of Iowa is actually going to lead this. Ben Chatfield, who is the police fire chief of Floyd, was the one that contacted me and wanted to know if we would maybe help head it up locally here. And they bought some old buses from us in the past, so we're going to use one of those buses and tip it over in a ditch, and we'll have some fun with it and do some learning and things like that. So. And next slide. Fully implement bus passes. We did that. We actually started on that 2 years ago. We've got what's called Traversa, and it's a monitoring tracking system for every rider that gets on and off the school bus. They scan on, they scan off. What that does, that tells if we have something happen on the bus, you always have to grab the sheet and say, okay, are you on here? Are you on here? Now it's instant. Sam's usually in the office unless she also has to drive. And if someone can call and say, did my student get off of the bus? She can look instantly on the computer and say, yep, we got off at 4:02 at this location. So it's a great system. What we're having problems with is a lot of students would forget their bus passes or leave them at home, and they could never understand why we were so insistent on that. We need your bus pass because it just helped in all kinds of different ways. If you get in an accident with the bus, you instantly have to provide a list of who's on that bus to local authorities. So we can do things from there. We can contact parents. They know who's on the bus, so it's actually a pretty good system. The other system it does too, if you have spare or sub-bus drivers, it also has turn by turn on the iPad. There's an iPad on the bus and they scan on, it shows that student's name. If we have their photos entered, it shows their photo and then also gives them turn by turn for every route that we have. So you just log in, you enter the route, it automatically brings up the turn by turn for you. So it does a lot of good things. Some other things that we're trying to implement on this, and you see some things like set deadline when information has to be to the transportation department. Then the last one is bus passes are requested after the deadline. Get transportation will let parents know the date that the student can ride. So what we want to try to work for on this is this last year we had a lot of issues at the beginning of the year where bus passes, Sam would work 70, 80 hours a week the last 2 weeks before school, just trying to make the bus passes because everyone called at the last minute. We had a date that we said we need the bus passes by. Then she started to make them and we didn't get them all done and we started to school and not everyone's in the system. So people are riding that don't have a pass yet. We don't want that to happen because we had a few issues at the beginning of the year, students getting off at the wrong stop, students walking to the wrong location. So we're going to try to come up with a way that, hey, we want passes by this date. That way it gives Sam and the staff enough time to make the passes. If we don't have them by that date, we're going to have 2 weeks after school started, and then maybe that's when the students can ride. But we're going to get that proposal put together and how we're going to do that. So that's another thing with getting fully implemented on the bus passes for all riders. And it's a big safety and security issue for everyone. Update handheld radios. We have approximately 54 radios in the district. I just got put in charge of this year, so I thought it was another good thing to add. What this is security and safety in each building. Each building has one, as you can see down low. We have 6 channels on our radios. We have one that's a repeater, and a repeater you can reach to every building, and it actually can reach quite a ways outside the buildings. Channel 2 is high school, 3 is middle school, 4 is activities, 5 is Washington, and 6 is Lincoln. So what that is if you've got the radios in Lincoln School, you put them on channel 6. They can communicate with each other. If we're having an issue on one end of the school, you instantly can call. And there's, I don't know how many at each school. I haven't got it all divided out yet, but each school, these are already out to all school and being used. It's just not down. What's on the spreadsheet doesn't match all the radios because there was a big group of radios that moved up to the high school. So we've got to get that all updated. But it's staff that are in key locations in every part of the school that have a radio. So it's instant communication instead of trying to call someone on a cell phone, page overhead. So we have quite a few radios in each school. So if you take how many schools we have divided by 54, that's approximately what we have, except for high school and middle school, that have a few more than the elementaries. So that's an ongoing thing that I'm trying to finish up. I had to do a lot of work with Circle K because that's where all the radios come from for the district. And she's helping me get some of these things worked out and where they're at. Got to take the radio apart, all the serial numbers are underneath, and then you match it up with where the radio is. So that's an ongoing project that I've also got in my plate for the finish up this year. All right, next thing that we just want to give a little bit of update on. This is a 5-year capital project plan, and we've discussed this a few times, but this is just a working plan that continually gets updated and everything. We're going to talk about 24, 25 here a little later that I need for approval so I can get going on summer projects. I usually bring that plan about September, October, so I have plenty of time to get all my projects bid. But this year we got a little behind because of the bond. We didn't know what would happen there, and also school board, different change of school board. But years 2, 3, 4, and 5, there's items in there, but it's continually changing. If there's things that maybe all of a sudden is more of an emergency, it might get moved up, or if there's something that might need to get moved down. Now I did have one question, and I think Bruce answered that question. He goes, so is the sewers lines at the high school not important since they're not on the 5-year plan? The answer is no, like I told him. The problem with sewer lines, also the electrical is very important, not on the 5-year plan, is because it's a big, large project. So doing a sewer system, if you do it all at once, is more than what I have for capital money. So that's why it's not on the 5-year plan at this time. But if we get in that direction and that's what we're going to do, then the other schools at that time won't have anything done. So if you look at the 5-year plan, we try to hit the high points of what needs to be done in each school district. So there's approximately $855,000 to $1 million a year in my budget for capital projects. So that's what I sort of base mine off of. So if I spend $1 million, it usually doesn't right now anyway, until some other items are paid off. It doesn't put anything into reserves. And if you look at most of my line items are around 855,000, something like that. That gets about 150,000 in that range to go into reserves. So if something does happen, we have some money in there to do that. So I'm not going to go into any details on them. We'll go into real detailed on the 24-25 here later on in the meeting. These are what we do. So what I do with, I got a staff that is just tremendous. We sit down once a year and we go through these lists right here that we keep adding to the list and adding to the list. So these are the things that we feel are pretty important at Lincoln School right now. And the things that are highlighted in yellow are in the 24-25 that we're going to talk about later. And we do that. And if we have to do it a couple times a year to keep updating it, we do it. But we have an HVAC person, we have an electrician, we have 2 general maintenance guys. So they know the district, they know what really needs to be done in this district. So this is the list that we have for Lincoln. And then we'll go ahead and next one. Here's our list that we have for Washington. And as you can see, Washington secure entrance is highlighted, but we didn't see that in Lincoln, and we're not going to see that in high school. And there's a reason for that because of the safety grant that we're going to talk about here a little later. That's why it's not in the other two, because it is very important. And if we wouldn't have got the safety grant, that would have been on this list. So the reason Washington's on there for that, Washington's is going to be more than what we got for the safety grant. So we wanted to add the money so we can do it with what we need to get done. And then to also talk about this, once we get the list together, what we want to bring to the board for this year and the 5-year, we take that to facilities committee. We took that the last time we had a facilities committee, and then they can review it and give me any suggestions also. Next slide. Middle school, you're saying, well, why the heck, we got stuff already on the middle school, but it's just things that, as you see in the middle school, that this is maybe things we need to change or make better. Or if you look, like additional parking, you go outside tonight right now, and there's a high school basketball, there's JV, it's we call them a quad, where it's boys and girls. You go out right now, there's absolutely no parking. So at some point in the future, we want to look at maybe doing some more parking. Now, just some things like that. Additional sidewalks to First Avenue. The cutouts on the curbs are all there ready to go, but maybe we want to get a sidewalk. And if you watch like at bus release time and students leaving, there are some people that walk, and they have to walk on the road instead of on a sidewalk because we don't have one at that time. So just some little things at the middle school. So go ahead to the next one. And the last one is high school. As you can see on the list, we've got quite a few that I picked away this year that for the high school that will be on the 24-25, and it's not on purpose, but as high school has quite a bit more than the rest of the schools because of what we need to do at the high schools. We do also have operations future projects. So my Pebble goes not only for repairing buildings and fixing buildings and everything else. We got to keep our vehicles updated. We got to keep operations equipment updated. We got to keep buses updated. So there's some things that we need to do in the future for the operations department. We call it operations, transportation, common field. The football field at some point in the future is going to have to be recrowned. So some things like that. All right, so now we're getting to the safety grant. We applied for a safety grant. I'm almost sure it felt like 2 years ago, and I don't think that the amount of work that we had to do to get this safety grant, at the end, we were almost wondering if it was worth it, but we finally got it. We had a lady out of Texas that was my contact. And if I wanted to have her, I don't know if I could have done it. But what we ended up getting is $50,000 for each of our 4 buildings that we own. And we had to put down exactly what we wanted to do with that money. And I had to be pretty detailed, like I'm building a secure entrance with this amount of doors, this amount of cameras and all that. And they will monitor every quarter. Callie and I have to fill out a report. At what point are we? We have to get minimum of 2 bids to get this done. So I'm just going to do a quick, brief overview of what we're doing at each one. So hope everyone still hear me. I'll talk a little louder. So this is Lincoln. Currently right now, here's your main front entrance that we have just a vestibule. We're going to add a wall with double doors on each side here. So when you come in, you have to go into the office before you go anywhere else in the building. These will be doors that you can push button to release to let them go. There'll be card readers on it. There'll be a bunch of security devices on it, and I'm not gonna go into detail on what all security is, but it will be a good secure entrance. So when you check in, you have to talk to a person before you go anywhere else. Okay, go ahead, next slide. All right, Washington is a little more detailed. As you looked at, saw in my this year's 24-25 that it was highlighted in yellow. We're going to do some work that makes this even better. So currently right now, this is the office area. We have a 12-foot, it's more like about a 20-foot corridor there if everyone's been at Washington School. What we're going to do is we're going to move both staff that sit here. We're putting an office on each side. So when you come in, you have to check in with either one, and then they can release the doors and let them in. And this is still a nice corridor, so everyone can get around after that. Then this will make good usable space for whatever Washington School needs to do. I know they have some ideas, but just a rough estimate on this one's about 90 to 100,000. So we get 50,000. So we're going to put 50,000 to finish it off. So this will be the secure entrance for Washington School with adding 2 nice offices up front and taking these 2 up there. This will be top of the line security when you come in. Now, I don't know about what for sure will go through when people go through, but that detail will be worked out as we have the money. But it'll be doors and cameras and everything that we can get in with our $50,000. Okay, we'll go next one. All right, this is the high school. All right, high school, here's your main 3 front doors. Then there's also a door there. So this is like the big vestibule. This will create a wall here, and that's the glass windows that you can check in right now. So you could come in, check, and go. Now you can't until you talk to them. This will be a secure entrance until you talk to them, and then you can release and go. All right, so that's what the high school is. And then the middle school is a little bit different because we really don't have, go ahead and do the next one for me. All right, so the middle school already has a secure entrance. It's got an entrance where you come in, you check in, you can't go anywhere until they push the button and let you go. So there's some things here that connected to the middle school, high school. So right out here on this side of the library and that side of the library, there's a connect hall that goes down to the middle school. Those doors are locked if something locks in the middle school, but they're old doors that are not real secure. They're separated. So we're going to replace both those sets of doors with nice double doors, better security, and we're going to increase a lot of cameras in the middle school. And we're going to do a few other things in the middle school with some more lockdown readers and things like that. So that's what we're doing in the middle school. Now, I'd love to go into more detail, but if you go into more detail about how you're secure and all that, then it sort of gives it away. So we're not going to go into more detail, but we're working on it. We're doing a lot of good things. So those projects will be done this summer. They have to be done this summer. So, okay. All right. And I think that's my mid-year report. Are there any questions?
I've got a couple.
Yeah, we go back to slide 5, please.
So one of the things you talked about in this was making sure that we, students choose their passes so we know who's on the bus and then when they get off, right? So obviously it's a scanning technology that uses their student ID in some way, or is it a separate pass?
Okay, it's a separate pass at this time. We're looking at going to the same pass that we can use for lunch tickets, for activity tickets and everything, because we want to make it one pass. Because right now what's happening, Josh, is with a separate one, it gets lost a lot. So we're looking into that too.
The second one is if they forget their pass, is there a way for the bus driver to put a code in that notifies Josh Mack got on the bus, even though he didn't have his pass, I typed in it.
Correct.
Okay.
Can. And we always let them on in the morning. So what the standard is right now, we always let every student on even without a pass. And then if they can't get the pass during the day or they lost it, Sam makes a new one, has it to the school, so they have it when they get on the bus.
All right, and then my third question related to that is there a way for us to communicate to parents whenever there's a transaction that happens on there? So, there's students waiting out, they get on the bus, then they get a text or some communication one way, right? They just get it. Josh Mack got on the bus. Josh Mack was delivered to school at 8:04 or whatever. And then at the end of the day, when they get off the bus, right, it says, Josh was delivered to his bus stop or his stop or whatever. So parents know, oh, my kid did get off the bus. I should see them home in 5 minutes, especially just when it's really cold out.
Yep. We I'm glad you brought that up. So we do a lot of things with the transportation director at Osage. We do a lot of talking and so forth, and they haven't got any system at all. So we had He came over, his business office person came over, and we had a Zoom meeting with Transversa and also another firm. And both of them are real close to getting the parent app, that's called, added to them. As soon as that's added, that's exactly what it can do. They can track their students. It will tell them what time their bus is getting home because the buses will have GPS tracking on them also.
Sure.
So and that's coming.
Okay, excellent. Can you go to slide 6, please? In this one, so how do the buses talk to each other? So it looks like all the buildings can talk. Is there a way that the buses can talk to each other?
They already have their own system. So this is a different system than what the buses have. And so all the buses have them. My mechanics truck has them, and we have one radio that's at the front reception desk of each school also has a bus radio. So we started that last year, and we didn't use it a lot with the schools last year. Now when we're out driving, I drive an afternoon route, so I hear it all the time, but the buses are constantly calling the schools and saying, hey, I'll be in your school in 5 minutes, or hey, this so-and-so didn't get on today. Were they at school today? So it's working really well that we added those radios to the schools.
Okay. Thank you. Could you go to slide 7, please? So looking at your capital project plan,
Yeah.
you talked about electrical, plumbing, and HVAC, which are not on here.
Right.
Do you have any idea what the cost of those are in a ballpark range?
Yep. So last year, March, was it March? We had a 6-year proposal to do that. And I think it got sent out to each one of you again. And I can't remember off the top of my head, but for HVAC, we had it separate. We had plumbing and electrical together because it's a good fit, because you have to tear out some walls, you have to tear out some flooring to get that done. And if I remember right off, for plumbing and electrical, it was anywhere from 500,000 each. There was 6 phases, so that'd be 6 summer jobs. So around 500,000, and I think the highest for that was approximately 800,000. HVAC was anywhere from 900,000 for each of the 6 phases, and the highest was
Almost
1.7 million.
Yeah.
So, and that was from, so that I did that presentation in March of 23.
Our work session.
Yeah, we did it at the work session. So those numbers are probably from the end of 22 to right at the beginning of 23.
So on the high side for electrical was 44.2 million, low side's 3 million, and plumbing and HVAC. Low side's 5.4 million, and the high side is 7.2.
Correct.
And I can send those documents to you.
Okay. And then the last thing, if you could go to slide 13. I think this is awesome that you've got these secure entrances built. It's super cool. You guys did a great job on that. Looks really nice. So that's all I'm saying.
Thank you. I didn't know if it was worth it. I'm glad we got. We spent a lot of hours, and I'm sure it'll be a lot of hours yet. Kelly and I will put a lot of paperwork on that, but it was good. Any other questions? All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I think I got one more here, don't I? Do I have another? The grant. Okay, so one other quick thing I got here. We had a representative on what was called a 50, what is the number? Okay, one of the blank. Where is it? Oh, 5210 Healthy Choices grant. And we had a representative, we had Bethany Bjorklund on it, and they started working on it, and they got to the point where they thought they were going to try to probably give quite a bit of the money to the schools. So they wanted to call me to get some prices and so forth. So I'll give you a brief description of what it is. Charles City was selected as one of 14 communities across Iowa to receive the 5210 Healthy Choices funding through the Iowa Department of Health and Human Services. So Charles City didn't even apply for it. They chose the 14 that were going to get this grant. So it was approximately a $30,000 grant this year. And then there's 2 more years after that where the money goes down a little bit each year, but they still get 2 more years worth. So it was locally, the HHS worked with local steering committee consisting of representatives from the city of Charles City Community School District, Floyd County Department of Public Health, and Floyd County Medical Center and TLC Daycare. The steering committee looked at the local needs and decided what the projects would be. So as they got going, we got most of the money. So I don't know how we were, the lucky ones to do that, but it's awesome. So do you have, there was like, some pictures, if not, I can describe it to them. I think, yeah, it'd be that right there. All right, so what they chose to give us is, this is the bottle fill station, that's gonna go at our North Grand location. And TLC uses the gym during the day, the school district or other entities that wanna use the gym, use it at night. And so we're gonna get a bottle fill station through this grant, and then we'll install it. They asked if we can install it. Absolutely, we install them all the time. Scroll up a little bit. Yeah, oh, the next page. Okay. All right. Here's a really, really cool thing. When we built that playground at the middle school down here, it was rubber bark mulch. We have a lot of people say it's not ADA accessible. What are you gonna do? We're gonna get an ADA accessible playground right down there next to all those. So off of the cement on the basketball courts, between the basketball courts and the playground, we're gonna get those equipment right there. That's $20,000 worth of ADA accessible equipment. That's part of this grant. So I got that. And the next slide.
Can I ask one question about that? Will they be able to, if you are, handicap accessible, like if you have a wheelchair or
Yep.
would they be able to, drive there into the space? Thank you.
Correct. Last year, we had the curb there yet on the sidewalk that went down there that meets the grade level for that. And it was a curb yet. So last year, we're preparing to do something in the future. If you drive by down there now, we put an ADA accessible entrance on that, took the curb out, put the red ADA entrance to that. So we're ready to go. So they can, powered wheelchair could go down there, a push one, whatever, go down, we'll connect it to the basketball court. So you can go down on that cement to the cement that contains all of the equipment that they can use.
So if I'm right, this was something the students brought to us like 2 or 3 years ago, right? They asked about an ADA compliant playground up at the middle school.
Correct.
And so it's really neat that we're able to provide that. It took some time, as all things do, but we're able to give that to them. Sounds like we'll have that next year, maybe.
It'll be this summer.
Oh, this
It'll
summer.
be done this summer.
Okay.
Yep. After we go through this, I got the letter from John Robbins, who's with the North Iowa Area Council of Government, say everything's approved, ready to go. And what we do is we pay for it. And within 2 weeks, they turn around and give us the check for the equipment. So, yes. I don't know if it was any help at all, but Tyler, my son, is the Park and Rec director. He come up, said, we got to find something to use a lot of money for, like playground or something. I said, I got a perfect plan. But anyway, it worked out great. So that, and then the next slide just shows you names of what the equipment is. So none of these are ride-on equipment. It's all pull up, do things with, and things like that. So I think it's awesome. And the last thing we got out of this, which is a handicap swing. We already have them at Washington. We don't have one at Lincoln. So this is what it is. This one, and then the next slide just shows the front and the side view of it. So we'll add that at Lincoln. So those are the items that we got.
What's the flooring or the footing or whatever?
On the base, it's just gonna be cement. So that way it's all accessible and you can wheel around on a wheelchair. And the reason you can leave it cement without a rubber base, there's no equipment that you ride on. It's all things you pull up, you do things with them and things like that.
Okay.
So, yeah, so the surface is all accessible that anyone that's on a walker, wheelchair, or anything can roll around all of them. So, okay. All right. Any questions on that?
Thanks, Jerry.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
So. Go on.
Thank you. Superintendent's board report. What's going well? Charles City High School Jazz Band saxophonist Katie Heckers received a soloist award at the Triton Jazz Festival Wednesday, January 10th, held by the Iowa Central Community College in Fort Dodge. This is an outstanding honor. If you know or see her, please give her some congratulations. At the district level, it was my pleasure to serve at the recent Rotary Soup Supper fundraiser and mingle with stakeholders regarding the great work underway. Progress toward the soon to open Regional Career Center continues with the completion date of March 2024. The district plans to begin collaborative programming with up to 32 students in August of 2024. Principal Jeremiah Bliss was featured in the January 12th Charles City Press, where he was able to detail the efforts that he and Associate Principal Susan Johnson are undertaking to improve student attendance and discipline procedures, including an extensive outreach to engage parents. The Crisis and Life Safety Committee continues to meet and has very good attendance from a number of area agencies and school representatives, as you saw in the presentation by Director of Operations, Jerry Mitchell. Thanks, that's all I have.
New business. First item is approval of the 24-25 capital projects just presented by Gary Mitchell. Motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2024-2025 capital projects as presented.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion, further discussion?
And Jerry is still here if you have questions.
No further discussion. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Passes. Approval of the Brian Brandow Scholarship.
Yes, as you can read, Casey Blandau, one of our new staff members who you may recall did an outstanding job getting our district in compliance with our district career academic plan as required in state law. Working and reviving a number of different career opportunity experiences and fairs. Their family is putting together a memorial scholarship in name of her father, Brian. They've hosted a fundraising pool tournament the last 2 years, and they're ready to begin providing this opportunity. Her dad graduated from RRMR, but he lived in this area for most of his younger life. So they're going to be splitting the funds between both Charles City and RRMR. The current idea of $500 per scholarship with 1 to 2 offerings each school year. Her mom has already worked it out with RRMR. She's given them a check, and she wants to do the same for Charles City. So with your support, we'll be able to move forward. And we have a scholarship fund. Callie can talk more about that if you have questions.
So just as a question, is it for a college scholarship or is it just a scholarship for a high school or a middle school student?
She hasn't made that clear, but she
Okay.
is working on a process and an application process. Typically, you'll see them offer that scholarship to any continuing ed.
Okay.
And in an interest area of the individual for whom it's named, but she said she'd have more details. She wanted to get the check into our coffers.
I just wasn't sure, so something.
Is there a motion to approve the Brian Brandow Scholarship?
I'd make a motion to approve the Brian Brandow Scholarship.
Second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Marketing for the property for sale is our next discussion item. We have some land, approximately 20 acres north of Washington Schools that was originally Sherman Nursery in Bailey. We bought that and we've used it for the agriculture department, I believe, for a number of years. Recently was asked by Bailey Corporation to rebuy that. And this is, we did discuss it last meeting, as I recall.
We had a closed session and discussed the potential sale after we had discussed it with our finance committee. And it appears to be the board's desire to move forward as per the obligations that the outlines you have in your board policies. Callie's closely with an attorney to make sure we are copacetic and following all of our rules. We also have attached 3 documents sent by Dean Stewart regarding easements on the property. And there are hard copies available at the back table near the door, entrance door. If you want to look at those more closely, they're also attached to the agenda.
I guess the first thing that we need would be a motion that we can begin the marketing of that property for sale according to the proper laws, rules, regulations for schools to sell.
So I guess, but before, I mean, I'm happy to make that motion. I just want to understand what's our process. Are we using a real estate agent? Or are we going to accept bids for people to market it for us? Are we going to market it? What's the?
We need to discuss that. We haven't decided.
Okay.
Yeah. That's up for discussion.
So the only thing we need to approve is whether or not to even pursue it.
Pursue it, correct.
I think at this time, I'd like to make a motion to table this item in light of new information with the easement. So we can discuss amongst each other and see if marketing is the best strategy for our board. Until next meeting.
Need a second for that.
I'd second that, sure.
There's a motion to table this until at least the next meeting. Let's say the next meeting. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is tabled. Moving on to overload a. Lundquist, you want to explain what that means?
I can provide some background. At a recent meeting with our interest-based problem-solving committee, and as you know, that's our approach to negotiations in our district because it's roundtable, it honors everyone at the table, it's a very positive experience, and it's all solutions focused. With our current master agreement, secondary teachers, whereby we cannot find a substitute to fill a classroom, for example, social studies. Each hour of the day, a teacher may have the opportunity of giving up their 40-minute planning time to cover first period, second, third, and so on. So we do have lesson plans, we have a licensed teacher, and students still receive their instruction even amidst the substitute shortage. What wasn't clear was the impact on that for elementary teachers. So in our pre-K, primarily K through 4 classrooms, when we aren't able to find, say, a 4th grade teacher, substitute teacher, they have, say, 22 students, they would split and put 11 additional students in each of 2 classrooms, and possibly in some instances, split them 3 ways. What we're suggesting here that depending on the assigned overload, the compensation will be either for a half day or a full day, depending on the assigned overload. If it happens to be a smaller setting classroom, it could be less. This is basically a no-cost response to teachers who are taking on extra responsibility. The district doesn't have to put out the $140 for a substitute teacher. Instead, we can split those 2 groups of children, give each of those teachers $70. It's not exactly the same as what the high school teachers get, but at least it's comparable, and it's honoring our staff for taking on that responsibility on the fly in a very crowded classroom. So that's 30+ kids they deal with, and they do it with a smile on their face. They haven't been paid. This was a suggestion. We thought it was a good one, and we'd like to make it retroactive from January 1st, because that's not such a bookkeeping nightmare to try and figure out when and how that was done. Moving forward, this will become part of our handbook. So this agreement would be in place through June 30th. And on July 1st, the handbook would be approved, which would then guide us moving forward. This really shouldn't be language in a master agreement, but would belong in the handbook as per Chapter 20 Iowa Code. So we would take it to that level with your support, of course.
You can have a motion for that and
I'd
then
make a
discuss it
motion.
further.
I'd make a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding for overload pay.
Second.
I'll second.
Any further discussion, questions, thoughts? Okay. Motion in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. set the date and time for a public hearing on the expenditure of school flexibility fund. Yeah, Dr. Bush, do you want to update us on that?
Actually, that's gonna be Callie talking about that.
So when I started in the, we got a warning from the State Department that the TLC fund was extravagant. So in order for us to, settle the state down and, make them happy, we would like to flex $475,000 out of the TLC fund into a flex fund and use it for salaries to cover some funds that we are negative in, to make our solvency ratio a little bit better. So, right now you have over 800,000 in that account. Things were not coded properly to that. That's why there's a ton of money sitting in there. And if we flex it out to cover some salaries that are negative, we should. So we just have to have a public hearing.
Essentially, this was a use it or lose it type fund.
It's going to be eventually, so I would probably just use it in that template state right now. So since she's making a lot of changes with AEAs and.
And it's nice because in the past, we didn't have that flexibility. And that's why this is so beautiful. And this is, I will tell you that, the majority, if not every one of the superintendents I've communicated with in the past several months is doing something similar to this. I still think it's important to maintain some of the TLC programs. We've seen the kind of academic growth and the trends because we have what I refer to as master teachers. They would be embarrassed if they heard me call them that, but we have teacher coaches, instructional coaches that are working hand in hand with teachers to improve their practice. And in our district, the core instruction is of critical importance because anytime you have less than about 70% of your students proficient, we know that it comes back to an issue with our core. So the two instructional coaches that we have now are really important and doing great work. And I'd like to retain instructional coaching moving forward now that we have Jen Schilling to provide the appropriate guidance so that those coaches can be successful. And their time is monitored closely. They log and show the extent to which their efforts are actually meeting with success. And that hasn't always been the case. So that's why it's so beautiful. We don't want to throw something out that's really getting us somewhere. But of this amount of money, we can retain some good work here and then use the balance on something that will help us with our general fund and will help us with our solvency ratio. And I think that's to me, a happy medium.
Sounds like it was a bookkeeping problem.
In the past, I think perhaps there might have been some misunderstanding about how things were coded. And although I do commend Callie often, and I appreciate that the rest of you recognize that as well, we're getting that cleared out. I can't stress enough the complexity of the school finance in Iowa, and I have had a local attorney tell me, one of the brightest people I know, he said, I couldn't take nor would I want to consider taking on a business manager in a school district because the level of complexity in school finance in Iowa is second to none. And so to have someone with 16 plus years of experience that can see those things, and this is not a reflection on any past employee, I would never do that. I will say that I think we are headed in a good direction with changes like this.
And I did the flex thing every year in the last districts. It's just because it gives you so much money and you don't use it, flex it and use it to cover salaries.
Do we have to read the whole?
Yes, you just have to just to make a motion to use first part.
I'll read it. The request to approve the resolution to consider approving transfer of funds to the flexibility account within the general fund expenditures and setting the hearing on proposed resolution. Approving expenditure of funds in the flexibility account for salaries at the February 12th, 2024, 5:30 p.m. board meeting. Hearing will take place and the board will vote on the resolution and the flexibility funds.
I make that motion.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion, questions? Thoughts? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. NEIC conference membership.
Yes, Dana Sullivan, our activities director, as well as some support from some of her colleagues will come forward and explain to you, what has been a rather recent and rapid change, and I will also say unexpected, change of events over the past week or so. Thanks, Dana.
Yeah.
And you'll want that gigantic voice so our listeners at home can hear you.
Okay, Jeff just gave me the call on the left hand side, so, yeah, and actually, we were just reading that there is a news article out there already within the last half an hour that says that the NEIC was created in 1933, which is our local, athletic and performing arts conference. It has come to light in the last week that one of those schools within our conference has chosen to seek admission to the Upper Iowa Conference. And if that were to happen, that would, within 2 years, take us down to 4 schools in our conference. As of next school year, Waverly Shell Rock is no longer a part of the NEIC. The following year, if Crestwood were to be accepted, they would no longer be part of the NEIC. And then there is pretty high speculation that Waukon would also follow suit, as well as possibly New Hampton. That being said, it's not that the NEIC is completely dissolved right now, but we feel like it might be in our best interest as a district to start looking around and seeing what would be of interest to us as a whole, for our students, for our athletes, for our musicians, everybody as a district. Without a conference, what happens is you can have no conference champion athlete. You can have no conference champion sport or team or activity. You also on my end, I guess, as the scheduler of events, you would have no guarantee of any sort of scheduled games for anything. The music festival right now is an NEIC music festival that would go away. Since we have 6 teams right now in the conference, we're guaranteed to play each one of those school districts twice in a year. We go there once for most activities, and then they come here once for most activities. Without having a conference, you don't have that, and you just kind of have to shop around to all the different schools in the area that you would potentially be interested in playing and competing with. So we brought a group of coaches, community members, the one and only Todd Forsyth, who's behind me. He's probably super red and embarrassed right now. Just a lot more knowledge to the table and to this room specifically last week. And we just sat down and we hashed out and we were talking about what is our option, what should we do, when should we do it, how should we act, and what we came up with is we would really like to have proposed Superintendent Lundquist to send a request for inquiry to the North Central Conference, which is on this that you received on the board documents, but then also I printed them out for you and in front of you. It's on that front paper. It has Algona, Clarion, Goldfield, Clear Lake, Hampton, Dumont, Humboldt, Iowa Falls, St. Edmund, which is in Fort Dodge, and Webster City. The numbers in the parentheses are their beds numbers or their school count numbers, 9 through 11. And then on the furthest column to the right is the distance, how far those are away. Mr. Joe Taylor did some nice calculations for me, calculated out how far each of these would be an average distance for us, as well as the average school sizes. And we took a number of them into consideration. You will see that on those pages. I also included for you guys a map that is at the back of these. So if you pull this out right here in the middle, and then you can take the maps out. And what it shows is it shows kind of relative where we are compared to other conferences. And we compared it with the North Central Conference, the North Iowa Cedar League, the top of Iowa, and the WAMAC. We thought our best choice to inquire to would be the North Central Conference. And I guess we would like your approval and support in asking them just more questions about their conference and like what their bylaws are, which we can find online. We do actually already have those, but just to get more information, kind of ask questions, see what they would need from us, see what we would want to know from them as far as being a part of a different competitive league.
How stable has this conference been?
This one, I couldn't tell you when it started or how long it's been around, but it has been fairly stable. The nice thing about this conference also is that it has more schools in it than the NEIC has right now. You know, things could always change and shift. I mean, and especially as school districts change in size, you can kind of see that on here. You know, there's some that maybe have grown larger when you look at their number in parentheses, and some that have went smaller, but they've been around quite some time. And yeah, I would feel comfortable and confident, at least inquiring to them and asking more of those questions like that.
The first step in the process is just as you say.
1930.
Oh.
There's my researcher. I feel like having him on phone speed dial. This is awesome. Phone a friend.
1930.
1930.
What number was in there? Just one.
8.
8, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think it's also notable that the size makes it a very sweet spot for our district in terms of our competitive edge. I will say my learning curve is steep on all manners of this, but in the room with those head coaches last week, we had a couple of hours in this room. Dana, Todd, the rest of the head coaches. I'm gonna say there was more than 100 years of combined experience in the room, and undoubtedly their first choice was the North Central Conference. And you can see on the map, we would be the east edge of that. And yes, I do have concerns about the travel to someplace like Humboldt, especially if it's a school night, as they may as well. But here are some things we learned. You can meet and say, you know what, let's have the contest with Humboldt and Charles City in school somewhere along the way. Maybe it's West Fork is open that night. Maybe Clear Lake might be open that night. We could have a contest at a middle ground, right? We could pay a small fee to the district, save transportation costs, cut down on travel time. The other thing we might do is say, for those games or for those meets, we're gonna shoot for a Friday night that we don't have an early rise, or we're gonna try it on a Saturday. And there could be a chance with some that are particularly distant. Maybe we simply, with our younger students in 9th, 10th, 8th, maybe they don't actually play, but they can do some non-conference play in neighboring districts like New Hampton or Osage and still get court time, still get field time, still have an experience that will build them. While clearly at the varsity level, this was the best spot size-wise, as you can see by the numbers. And the numbers don't include seniors, am I correct? This is going to be 9, 10, and 11th grade students.
It's really, you know, it's kind of heartbreaking because I would love it to not change. I would love to still be in the NEIC and stay here. I'm not so sure that it's going to
I
happen.
just piggyback on that quick.
Yeah.
This is a very emotional issue for athletes that graduated from Charles City over the last 70 years, 80 years. Northeast Iowa Conference is at my heart. Number one is Charles City. We have to do what's best for us, and I think we gotta show some leadership. We gotta act. We don't want the state to put us somewhere where we don't wanna be. Even if we apply, it doesn't mean we're getting in. I think this is a starting point, and after we talk here, I'm sure we're gonna have to talk to people down at the state associations. It's gonna be a lot of decisions gonna have to be made by their school boards, to accept, a lot of discussion, deny, whatever. But I think Dave is right in leading this. Not that we want to, but we have to, we're forced to. And I know 8 years ago, I sat in a room at NEIC conference ADs, and we knew a lot of large conferences are going, and we stayed as our 7 teams, but we invited about a half dozen schools into the conference, but all turned us down. And so this probably was a matter of time happening. Now, the state would say, hey, you figure out a new conference, I can figure out a new NEIC conference, but you know, I don't think we got any control of all the other schools and what the state's gonna do, so I just don't see that happening. I think this is your best option at this time, maybe things will change, but I think it's a starting point. And so they've done a lot of legwork on this, a lot of information there for you to follow, but it's not just numbers, it's also a lot of emotion for people in our community.
You see why I have him as the advisor? I mean, come on.
What's the average size of the NEIC for the beds number, do you know?
I don't know. I honestly, I thought about calculating the average size and the average distance, and
Well, those are my
My-
two questions, yeah, so, I mean,
my brain went to like, I don't know if I probably shouldn't say it publicly, but does it matter anymore? I mean, that's what stakes.
What were you wondering
the
again?
question, like, how the average distance for the NEIC and the average size of the beds number, so those are the two
Okay.
calculations.
Oh,
that she's
okay,
got.
for our current NEIC.
And the reason I ask is, you know, so I'll use my son, so my son's in seventh grade, and he's on the basketball team. And I think they leave for some games at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, so he misses, you know, at least 2 classes. I'm guessing, you know, if we look at, you know, for example, if we do this, 125 miles to St. Edmunds. I honestly, I don't even know where that's at, so I have to talk about that. Or Dodge, so that's at least 2.5 hour drive to get there. So, you know, if they're playing at 4, they're leaving at lunchtime.
Yeah, which is why from like a middle school perspective, that would be one that we would really talk with them, keep our relationships good with that school. But it might not be wise for us to schedule middle school contests with St. Ed's. That might be a situation where, hey, we leave that to the varsity competition on, say, a Friday night or a Saturday. And then with the middle school, hey, Nashville Plainfield or Osage or Red Rockford Marble Rock, somewhere closer.
So
Put those in.
we don't play with those schools today. I guess what would be the reason they would want to play our JV students?
Some, we do to some, with some we do, and it's every year, it's always a numbers game. For instance, let's take girls' basketball. This year they had 30 girls in 7th grade girls' basketball, 30, and you know, I thought that is amazing, but I kind of really had to wait until that actually happened before scheduling more. Once that happens, then we can call and say, hey, we would really like to schedule an additional date with so-and-so or so-and-so, you know, and versus if you have low numbers.
8th grade was like 8 players, some girls.
And then it's like, hey, we can't play so many games in a week because there's just not enough bodies to make sure that their kids are staying healthy. That part of it changes year by year, especially middle school. So far, I mean, what I've learned so far is it's middle school can fluctuate. We can change who we're playing a lot easier than at the varsity and high school level.
So then, like, looking at the second option, which just in terms of numbers, the North Iowa Cedar League, right? That's 15 schools in it. They're closer than us. I mean, is the thought that just their size is such a big discrepancy between us that they would.
Yeah, so North Iowa Cedar League is my alma mater. I graduated from Wapsie Valley, so you know,
You should have some in there, right? You can talk to them.
so my brother is on the school board and I talked to him about this last night. And I said, hey, you wanna accept us? Like, you know, we're just kind of playing around, joking around. He's like, not a chance. You guys are 3A. They're floating on A and 1A in a lot of things. You know, I mean, we were just making cordial conversation and laughing back and forth with each other. These are schools that I played in high school and I'm very, very familiar with them. Their average is 60 miles away.
Yeah.
Their average school size is 192 and we're 399. So
double the size. Basically.
Yeah,
Oldvine used to be in the NEIC.
they did. And I talked with someone within, not my brother, a different school within the NICL, and they said that Owine is making a very good fit there. When I looked at their numbers, they are at 259 and they're still 140 smaller than us.
I think you threw the statistic out that even though our numbers are higher, I think you used the next word, our participation rate is not
Right.
match. I mean, 100% of our students are not going
Right.
out for activities.
Right.
And they're double dipping in multiple activities.
Yes.
So
Yes. yes, our participation rate doesn't exactly mirror our student number. But it is what it is, it's what people look at.
But then if we're looking at a competitive district, it starts to become a marketing tool too, because like, oh, this. Like I know, for instance, like football played some of those teams in the NCC this year. Score wise, you'd be like, wow, we really got blown out. However, competitively speaking, those are some very good opportunities for our students.
For our students, correct. And
the coaches, I think, would hands down, I want competitive experiences.
You also have to think about it, and I personally have a lot of respect for Waverly and for Greg Bodensteiner, their AD there. But you also have to look at it from that aspect as well. They did so well against so many of us, and they were such a larger school. If we went to somewhere like the NICL as a massive school compared to the rest of them, do we really gain that much credibility? Because we have so many more students. We have, there's just, then that size factor comes into play with the argument of, well, they're better because. Versus like what you're saying, playing someone comparable that has, similar demographics or similar numbers, your competitive advantage is there.
And what we need to do as a board tonight isn't even guaranteeing any of this happen. It's just simply saying, here's a letter of inquiry, attached to this document.
Can we send it?
Could you even take us? Would you take us?
Yes, we're just I'm looking for your guys' permission to say, are you okay? Do I have your support if we were to start inquiring and to other conferences and the NCC for this time specifically?
And you had all the coaches' support for that?
Yes. Hands down.
I'm okay with being proactive, just for my own sake. What do you think is causing this shift? Why are we losing teams?
This goes back.
That's for any of you. I mean, I know there's been issues over the years, but I just don't want to move and have another conference. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think we're gonna have to have following up problems. So this has been going on for 3 years.
Right.
So it goes back to 2020.
Over the last 3 to 5 years, there's been some separation within the conference itself. And a lot of that's because some schools have gotten larger and some have gotten smaller. So you're trying to do more with less, it's less competitive, which creates a harder environment. And that's frustrating, I think we tried to save it, and there's just too many emotions and too many things where people thought it was unequal, and we try to get it on a more level basis.
Thanks.
We're not done. Stay here. Just take a seat. Right there. There you go.
Yeah, the motion is that we resolve that Superintendent Lundquist, Dr. Lundquist, submit a letter of inquiry to move. Yeah.
The last thing I just made a comment before we make the motion is, although this, whatever happens out of this, those who hold those records for this conference, they will hold those forever. No one will ever be able to take away the Charles City person who swam the 400 meters because you don't have a pool and we're not going to be in that anymore. So they will hold that record forever. So they can walk around, having their head held up high, that they will hold a record forever. No one will ever beat them.
Yeah.
So that is one positive thing out of this difficult situation we are in.
On this gravestone of the NEIC.
Right. We can pound those and stuff, yeah. So.
I'll make a motion to have Dr. Lundquist send a letter of inquiry on the switch from the NEIC membership to the NCC.
Second.
I'll second.
All in favor? Any further discussion, questions? All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you, guys.
Do you want your hand
Thanks
up?
for all.
You want things back?
You can keep them.
You can stay.
I want to keep it.
It's a pretty thing. The holder.
Oh.
Oh.
Well, you may get questions.
Text them. I want that to go in the house.
And you may get
I'll put it-
questions from
okay.
constituents, so it wouldn't hurt to have it at your fingertips in the
I
company.
just mean the holder is
Let's
really
get the-
fancy. I could just use a staple.
It's so conscientious.
Oh, that's good. You should use them. Holder, the holder is what I'm affirming for.
Oh, we have the policy.
Not the staple.
Yeah.
I'm going back to using paper as I'm not picking up online here right now. Number 11, a first reading of board policies. Don't know the numbers right off the top.
Actually, the first reading for those numbers, and they are assorted numbers, we did have, 401.01, a simple change, because of a, change in, state no longer using Teach Iowa to Iowa Works. For us, so we have 40502, the 700 series up through and including 709 and 50207. Otherwise, that's it. And the only substantive change was the artificial intelligence, as we discussed earlier.
Motion to approve the first reading of those board policies.
I'll make a motion.
Second,
Second.
all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Motion to approve the second reading of board policies.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All signify by saying aye, approve. Any opposed? Motion passes. 12, any board comments?
Just one, and I know this isn't on the agenda, but just at some point, it'd be great to get an update on how the food services that's going. We talked about that a while ago. Just if we could, that's kind of for you too, David, if we can just put on the agenda or just the superintendent's report, whatever's easiest, just see how that's going. I got some positive feedback from students that like they liked it, so.
Okay, just even since our last meeting?
Oh, yeah,
Well, that's really good to know.
yeah, so.
Make a note.
I think things are going in the right direction, so.
And I guess I would also want to just continue to see on the next meeting updates on facilities. I know Jerry spoke today. But we've had, public comment today, emails. So I want to see, so I know you had mentioned second opinions and I'd just like to hear where that's updated.
I did talk to the WBC in Waterloo, and definitely going to be more complicated than what I had anticipated.
Okay. So even if it's
But
just a discussion item,
Right.
we can just put that, just put this
Nevertheless,
updated.
I do think that we have to be responsible with our money and what we're doing. We heard earlier about tax dollars might be going up because of just plain current budget issues, much less new things. So we have to be careful, but it is going to be complicated, and we're going to have to be very, very purposeful about what we choose to do, when we choose to do it, why we choose to do it. And transparent so that everybody understands.
Yeah, so I guess, yeah, exactly. So in the name of transparency, I think continuing to put it on board agenda, even as a discussion item, to keep everybody updated.
And as a discussion item, as a reminder, because of the cost of an additional assessment of the high school building, that would give us a sense. I always compare those assessments as like a full physical with all the blood work, right? We're doing that full physical with all the blood work on a building that's 60 years old plus. So you would have to let bids for that. That would take several weeks, if not a couple of months, because it would cost in excess of your limit, which is $25,000. My estimate off the top of my head would be somewhere between 80 and 100. And that only came off the top of my head because I spoke with Jerry Mitchell about it. He had spoken with some neighboring operations folks. So that process would have to be an RFP to those who would say, what would the cost be to do a full review on our building in its current state of affairs? So we'll put that on next board
Correct.
meeting.
Just
We put some numbers out there too, because I think there's a lot of curiosity to what things could.
Just
would
a
cost.
slight update as we've talked about the second opinion. Kelly and I have been discussing with some neighboring schools, school districts on how they're processing in terms of the second opinions. And we've talked about Estes Construction. I kind of mentioned this to Josh when we talked earlier. A lot of the neighboring schools are using engineering firms to try and hone in on that price. So Modulus is
Yeah.
one.
And then the engineering companies will do the RFPs for everything else, which is part of the firm, and they do everything else.
Essentially, they.
Foxy Valley's going through it right now, and I'm going to so it should be an update.
Yeah.
So again, making it public so
That could be
everybody's
part
aware
of
of
the
it.
conversation as well then. Excellent, yes.
So that's a little cheaper option. There's a project in a neighboring community that's in that $500,000 project. And the engineering firm is between 25 and 37,000 to do their portion of making sure things are in order. They basically set the scope and help you monitor it to an extent.
And I think, Kelly, we're not required to do an RFP for engineering firms. We can just basically vet them and then choose one.
Yes, yep.
Right.
Foxy Valley did not do a bid process for that, and they've used their engineering company forever, so they said they didn't.
I'll let you all know we're very blessed with her contacts.
Yeah.
Because I asked a simple question and she had a list of emails come back with just people throughout the state. So I appreciate that.
No, it's, yeah.
We have no further items on the agenda except an adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Hold on.